There, everybody. This is Bro here, and I am advertising my video game retro podcast. Um, I also involve modern stuff with my friend Murph. It's called the Daydreamcast. It is on the Twin Geeks Network. Um, the entire podcast covers a wide variety of things, but these videos cover very specific segments of each podcast. And this one is actually a mash because I wanted to combine general impressions and thoughts of Elden Ring onto a singular thing for my viewers to enjoy because a lot of the viewers here like my From Software content. And I think even though this came out very early in Elden Ring's lifespan, the first episode was from Dino Crisis, which was on March 15th. And then the second portion of it was on March 30th. So when these came out, we were very like impressionable. The March 15th segment, for instance, we didn't beat the game by then. By March 30th, we had beaten the game, and I think some of the opinions might have changed, but largely speaking, these are still my thoughts on the game as a whole. And just going forward, I hope you enjoy this spliced together conversation with Murph and I on Elden Ring. Without further ado, here we go.
Brogan,
Yeah, what's up,
has
man?
anyone pointed out at the start of Elden Ring a guy tells you that you don't have a maiden? I think that would be very funny to translate to modern vernacular. Has anyone done this on Twitter.com, perhaps with a relevant Megamind meme that is going around?
I don't know how to break this to you, Murph, but yeah, they did. They already beat you to it.
What? But I'm on the cutting edge of comedy. I'll post it
In
anyway.
fact, I think I'm gonna be ahead of everybody and instead do the Megamind meme, but go no memes, no
Oh.
memes, and then there you go. Yeah, that's it.
Welcome to the Elden Ring cast.
Is memes the only thing you got for Elden Ring? Was that your only thought?
I could say things about Elden Ring. I can I can say things about Elden Ring with the best of them.
Okay, well then do it. Do so.
Oh, so much pressure. I'm turning off the podcast. I'm leaving. Yeah. I like Elden Ring. I think I still prefer Bloodborne, but I like it more than Dark Souls 3.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I think, man, it's a real big game, isn't it? It just keeps going. It's like the Energizer Bunny.
Okay, did you ever play Dark Souls 2?
No.
Okay, all right. That okay, so I guess the thing I would say about design direction is that I think Bloodborne and Sekiro went for we're gonna make it short and sweet,
Mm-hmm.
and every little morsel is a dedicated combat thing,
Mm-hmm.
and then like Dark Souls 3 is sort of like it wants to be Bloodborne, but it knows deep down it's a Dark Souls,
Yes.
and Dark Souls 2 was like taking Dark Souls 1 but making it into like a real JRPG with length and quantity.
Length and
And
girth.
Dark Souls 2 is like it's got the most content out of the three Souls games. But that being said, Elden Ring blows all of that out of the water and goes for the Dark Souls 2 approach of let's just fucking have everything in the game.
Yeah.
So much content.
It does feel a lot of it's a little bit of everything all of the time.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I think when you say you prefer Bloodborne or something, like, I don't. But that being said, I completely understand why someone would. I don't think Elden Ring is the goat of all time for everybody. No.
No, I mean I like it, but it's just like I got to the end of the Leyendell capital, and then I was like, oh wait, this is the halfway point, it seems.
Yeah.
And I was
Yeah,
like,
it's still
and then
going.
I looked at my playtime, which was 40 some hours, and I was like, I don't think I'm ever gonna play this one again, or at least not
Oh,
immediately. And yeah, there's sort of the Breath of the Wild thing of you can, you don't have to do all the content. You can just make a beeline.
yeah.
But at the same time, I'm not good enough to just make a beeline. I only got
Yeah.
good enough, like, my third playthrough of Bloodborne. I was good enough to bum rush Canehurst Castle and beat Martyr Logarius at level 25.
There you go. All right, now you're trying to break out the cred, make me look bad. No, I'm just
Yeah.
kidding.
Well, you're
No,
very
but
low level, uh, in
I don't
contrast to
level a
other
lot in these
people.
games. I don't think there's yeah, I don't see a lot. I mean, obviously there's reasons to level, but I don't really like. I don't play the game like that. I don't know.
Hmm. You're more like the lore hound. You're just looking, trying to Pepe
No,
Sylvia the whole thing.
Murph, I'm gonna be real. I have no idea what's going on in the
Why
game
do they call him the loathsome dung eater?
because I don't know. I think people aren't a fan of his dietary habits. I
Is it because he
one would
wears a big
assume.
hat?
I like the Dung Eater. The Dung Eater is my second favorite NPC in the game. Or actually,
Really,
like in terms of like a real NPC, he's my favorite.
really.
Yes.
You you like the guy who says I'm gonna defile your corpse as a form of saying goodbye?
All right. I guess this is really gonna actually become a Souls cast now. Um, my favorite like things in the games are like the corrupted, filthy. I'm an invader, like invader covenants,
Okay.
etc., etc. So like, I'm not like a holy paladin type of guy. I'm much more like a I will wear this dung thing and I will defile your corpse and yeah, it's good. It's all good stuff to me.
Boy, I guess we know who you're turning to into in the apocalypse.
Yeah,
Uh,
you know what it is.
I do like most of the NPCs in this. Actually, I think this is uh probably my favorite. I don't know, world. I guess from Soft.
I think that's one of the nicest things about it is like with that open space and content, it allows it to feel like a real living, breathing world for sure.
Yes, and that was always my problem with Dark Souls 1. Um
Yeah.
I know what I'm about to say you're going to counter with that's the intent, but my problem with Dark Souls
Okay.
1 was always that it felt dead. And I mean that as in like
Yeah.
sterile, barren. It didn't feel like anything had ever lived in there. It felt like I was walking on a model.
Yeah, I can see that. It feels empty, but it also feels there's no other way to say it other than it's intentionally empty.
Well, I
Yeah.
think it's also a technical limitation.
Yeah.
Like, when you look at a very similar environment in like Elden Ring, and there the enemies are like making little noises as you hit them, or they're sort of gangling around. There's a lot of animation
Yeah.
charm to
There's a
them.
liveliness to them that's otherwise not present.
Yeah, whereas in Dark Souls 1, everything's real stiff. And that's probably just from like the time it came out, and also from Soft not being one of the biggest names in the gaming industry.
Yeah, I mean, like in terms of stiffness or deadness, like if that's how you feel about it, I would not tell you to play like the Kingsfield games
Mm,
because that's all space and like two guys in a corner. You know what I mean?
yeah.
I remember you telling me once it's like it doesn't feel like it's a world worth fighting for,
Yeah.
and it feels empty, it feels lifeless. I think those things are you're meant to feel that, and then in terms of like I think the NPCs in like Dark Souls 1 they are more calculated than in than in Elden Ring where it's like they sort of I don't think there is anybody in Elden Ring that rivals Solaire in terms of iconography or in terms of like what it could possibly mean for a player's disposition.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And I
no,
would
I
say
see that.
and I would say Solaire would be the reason to keep playing. You know what I mean? Like Solaire is the bright spot. Dark
Yeah.
Souls is a lot of darkness with like a little bit of a bright spot to keep going. Whereas Elden Ring is much more of just a yeah, you're in a lived in world. Um the other thing in terms of NPCs is I think this is hitting the point now where I'm annoyed at where
Hmm.
at losing NPCs and not knowing where their quest lines are.
Oh,
I was afraid of it going in, and I'm now like,
are
it's a
are
problem.
you saying you would like a quest log
Yes,
in
I would.
a
Yes.
FromSoft game?
Actually, I said
Oh.
it once to another guy. The thing that I really need, I
Hmm.
don't need a quest log. What I would like is a log that has NPC interactions where I last met them and the recorded dialogue,
Yes.
which I don't think is offensive at all.
No, I don't think that's asking a lot. I kind of like dreamed up a concept where at like a site of grace you could replay like memories of a conversation or something.
Yeah, see, I mean, I think that would be a more elegant or stylish way to do what I would want, which is just a fucking Excel spreadsheet. But that being said, it's just like something to where I don't have to like guess or project what's going on. Because I will say, when the NPCs are on, like right in front of you, they do signpost. They do say what they want you to do or where they're going or whatever. And then it's like,
Sometimes.
okay, it's kind of, it's okay to figure out. Or like, I will say, in terms of lore, I'm not going to spiel on it, but I will say this game's more explicit about what's going on.
Oh yeah.
Like,
I like that.
I think it's very important that, I think the problem with Dark Souls is you need like 10 wiki articles and then like Vati Vidya to
Mhm.
explain to the basic person what's going on. And I do think that's a failing. I legit do think, like, hey,
Yeah.
if you need to have someone give you a cliff notes on the thing you spent 80 hours doing, there's a problem.
I was going to say that's the reason why kids don't like reading Moby Dick in high school. It's cuz
Yeah.
they need to be told that it's great. They can't see it for themselves, you know.
Yeah. And I think Elden Ring, it still has the depth of the other titles, but then it allows that barrier of entry comes down. It's a lot more accessible, even in terms of gameplay. I think in terms of gameplay, it goes so much. I'm so shocked reading the discourse on Twitter
Mhm.
about like, oh, what FromSoft can or can't do in terms of appealing to new players. They do so much every game, Murph. The stakes of America alone,
Oh my god, yes.
that alone is just proof that FromSoft is aware of what players do and don't like and what can be hostile to new players.
Yeah, if From ever dials it back and I have to do another boss run like going to Seath the Scaleless, uh
Oh
we're
man.
going to have a problem.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of people saying that this is the most accessible FromSoft game, and I don't know, maybe this is my favoritism showing, but I always felt Bloodborne was exceedingly accessible. Because you only, like, Elden Ring sort of bombards you with all these stats and systems that are just a little bit. You need to consult a wiki to know how to play optimally, whereas Bloodborne had always felt like playing optimally was just entirely your skill. I don't know how to phrase this exactly. Bloodborne feels very straightforward to me. I guess I should say
I would
that.
agree with that. Look, I think there's multiple ways to answer that question. I would say before Elden Ring, I would tell, if someone asked me what I think a random person's favorite game would be if they played FromSoft games, I would guess Bloodborne. Like if I just picked up a random guy on the street,
Mm-hmm.
I'd be like, your game would probably be Bloodborne. That would probably be the one you could access the most, and you would understand viscerally what the appeal of the design philosophy is.
Yeah.
But that being said, I think Elden Ring has a different approach regarding what can be accessible. Yes, Bloodborne exceeds in simplicity and is much more like straightforward in terms of aesthetic and appeal, where it's like, dude, you just gotta look at the box art and you know
Yeah.
exactly what you're getting, and you know, like, and even the twists and turns, like all of it just hits right where, even if you don't understand what's going on in that, like in Dark Souls, you still effectively understand what's going on. Like you understand that, you're beyond your element.
Yeah, Bloodborne relies on a lot of shorthand of the genre, whereas if you've ever been vaguely exposed to any sort of gothic or Lovecraftian story, you get the gist. Like when I was playing Bloodborne, a huge Souls friend of mine asked, like, "So what have you figured out in terms of the plot?" And I was like, "It's pretty straightforward. This is like a dime novel gothic horror. Like all the clues are there."
Yeah, yeah, the complexities in the details, but like that being said, the broad overarching like, oh, how am I supposed to feel in these moments, or what am
Mm-hmm.
I supposed to be thinking about? Those things are very explicit and signposted for the
Yeah.
player. Whereas like Elden Ring, similar thing. I think your thing about the complexity regarding RPG stuff is more tied to number one, the built-in fantasy aspects versus gothic aspects, where
Mm-hmm.
it's like, oh yeah, it's a fantasy world written by George R. Martin. I don't, you know what I mean? Like that will be naturally more
Yeah.
complex. Or like in terms of RPG, yes, there's so much quantity to it. There's a lot more things regarding that stuff. I don't necessarily think that's player hostile.
Yeah.
Especially in terms of this game. We could talk more about like earlier Souls games where I think it could be player hostile, but this one largely still wants to make sure you know what's going, like you know how to tackle things. And I
Mm-hmm.
think in terms of like JRPG fans or open world fans, this may be more initially appealing than Bloodborne.
Yeah. I think my biggest well, not my biggest, the one that's been on my mind a lot with FromSoft design that I think they haven't really addressed is that they have a lot of different damage types in this game, and I don't really know when any of them are applicable. You know what I'm saying?
What do you mean by applicable? Like when is it appropriate to Pokemon the villain?
I guess, yeah. I guess that's it. Like, I can read on Twitter.com that this, or the Wikipedia, that this boss is weak to strike damage, but that doesn't mean I'm going to go out and start investing in a strike weapon for
No,
20,
no.
20 points more
This is
damage.
this is
Or,
a standard Souls problem. They've always been like this, by the way.
yeah,
But that being said, no, you're not meant to just. Maybe you are in Elden Ring with the quantity, but I doubt it. You're not meant to just pick up a weapon and be like, "Oh, this is Pokemon. This is the water Pokemon. I need to use
yeah.
my electric attack." Like, no, it's much more like built for builds. This is meant for build variety. Because I would say like my biggest criticisms of like Bloodborne or Dark Souls 3 is they're very limited in variety and yeah, they're limited in build variety.
And the only time I'm switching weapons is to be more immune to Scarlet Rot and the Lake of Rot. You know, it's not like I'm looking at a boss and being like, he's dealing crush damage. Better switch to my crush resistant armor. You know,
Yeah, yeah,
it
none of
a
that.
system like that, it would feel like you'd want to be building an arsenal and switching on the fly, but that's never how players have ever played from soft games. You pick your build and then you adjust as you find things, not as you encounter enemies, if that makes sense.
Again, there's been bosses resistant or otherwise. I don't think this is a problem with Elden Ring. Or if it is a problem with Elden Ring, it's been a problem
Yeah.
for over a decade. Let's just say
No,
that.
no, I think it's a problem with FromSoft's designs. I think you could really just remove all those different damage types and just have a damage stat, and I don't really think I would play the game all that differently.
Murph. Oh no.
Oh no, am I
Oh
game
no.
journalisting
You've got a
now?
bad take. I
Oh
don't know
no.
what to tell you, man.
Oh dear.
Okay, all right. Here's what I'll say. I don't want that. No,
Okay.
I prefer the RPG aspects of the title, and I don't care necessarily if I need to adjust my playstyle for a specific boss. I'm not going to necessarily do that. In fact, I think. Okay, let's put it this way. You're meant to fight bosses differently based on your build. It's not so much that I need to switch to a blunt instrument to attack the blunt instrument boss. It's more like, oh, I've got a spell thing. Now I have to completely have a different playstyle for this boss.
Mhm.
And I think one of the biggest problems with later From Soft titles is that they did have a more focused boss selection where they want, and it's why Sekiro is very limited in your combat pool,
Yeah.
where it's like, okay, we can art like perfectly craft a singular experience, and that's what I think you want. Whereas
Mhm.
I want 10 different ways to solve the boss problem, and if one is not efficient because there's another boss down the road that was more efficient for my build, I think that's perfectly fine, and that was intended.
Okay. Yeah, no, I don't think I really want the Sekiro approach. I guess dialing back, I wanted the Bloodborne approach where there's only really what 15 weapons in the game,
Yeah,
and then there's no encumbrance limit, so you can equip whatever armor you want.
I mean, I think Bloodborne is like a satisfactory like compromise. I still think Bloodborne's too lacking for me. I don't like Bloodborne that much.
Okay.
Um, but that being said, like I'm not going to again, I think it's a really good experience. And that being said, it does have strength variety. It does have quality variety. It does
Mm.
have dexterity. It has arcane, and it even has blood tinge. And I like blood tinge a lot.
Yeah.
Blood tinge is a sick build.
My last build was Blood Tinge.
Okay, here's another way to say I don't like the blood gems in Bloodborne. The blood gems
Mm.
are like super bad, and it's like is the main reason for depth beyond just what you put your stats into. It's like based on heavy RNG on your chalice dungeons or locations, and then that's really it. That's all you got.
I I like the Blood Gems. I prefer the Blood Gems to how Dark Souls 1 did weapon crafting, where I had no idea what was going on. Or I guess
I
weapon
guess
upgrading, like I would tab over the different like weapon types, like, oh, you can make your weapon a heavy weapon, but it looks like I'm dealing less damage, so why would I pick that?
let's move on from this topic.
Okay.
We can keep talking about Elden Ring, but I don't want to go. I don't want to get mired in stat
Sure,
conversations.
sure, sure. So how about the open world end of it? Do you like Elden Ring being an open world?
Yes, 100%. And it goes into what you just said, where you complained about approaching a boss and being like, "Well, I don't think this was intended for me, or at least intended for me at this level."
Yeah.
Whereas there's probably something for you that the developers intended somewhere else in the game, so you can go get that, come back to this boss, and then deal with it with your build.
Yeah, I suppose now that I'm thinking about it, they do offer a pretty easy to access respec option
Yes.
pretty early into the game. So I guess that's sort of how you switch things up should you choose to. Um,
Hmm.
like last podcast, or really the first podcast, I was talking about Sekiro, how if when you reached a wall in that game, all you could really do is get good, because that's how Sekiro was designed. With this, if you hit a like hard boss too early, you can just do a 360 and walk away.
I think in terms of design, I don't want to say it's the exact opposite or polar opposite, but in for me this is the antithesis of Sekiro.
Yeah,
For me personally.
no, I think this is. And I don't really like lumping Sekiro in with the other Souls born games because
I agree.
it's really not.
I think it's much more comparable to a Ninja Gaiden or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
and here's the thing is if you want like if someone wanted to argue against me for that, I think if you measured Sekiro in terms of a Souls game, it fails.
Mhm.
Like I don't want to rank it on those terms. I want to rank it on how it deals with combat encounters and polish.
Yeah.
Whereas, Elden Ring went for a different thing where it's less polished, but it goes for
More
different content and
yeah.
stuff.
And I like how Elden Ring you can break it very easily. I like games like that. Like
Yeah.
I don't mind seeing that a boss I struggled on a high intelligence player, and I mean that in terms of the stat, not
No, you're big brain riff. Go
walked
ahead.
into the boss arena and just did the Kamehameha at it and won. You know, I don't mind
Yeah.
seeing that because I'm like, oh, it's cool that the devs allow that to happen. Because I think,
And to me the player earns that.
yeah,
The player does earn that by figuring out what that is and what that does and how to use the systems together. It's what you said earlier is like there's so many systems, you're overwhelmed to start. That is its own challenge is to
hmm,
figure out how the game works. And then breaking it is the final test.
yeah. And then there are some bosses that I think demand to be broken. Um,
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of their approach to boss design in this, where every boss feels like it has to be able to do everything.
Well, I would say depend. Oh my god. Okay, so there's so many bosses
There
in
are
this.
so many
There's so
bosses.
many there's so many bosses. I think it craves nuance to what you just said.
Mm,
Number 1, I would say the mini bosses don't count to what you're saying.
no.
I think the mini bosses are much more just like they took a special enemy, put them in the room of
The
of a small
smallest room
dungeon,
imaginable.
and that's totally fine for me. I enjoy those
Sometimes
fights.
they put three of them in a room.
Do you wanna rant about that or are you good?
No, no, I'm just overly bitter to losing to the watchdog and his four gank goblins 500 times and then abandoning that character.
Did you have a problem like did you have a bigger problem with Capra Demon?
So I skipped Capra Demon.
You did?
Yeah,
Why?
I had the key.
Why would you start with the key on your first playthrough?
I didn't know it would let me skip most of the game or most of the early game.
It said it opens doors otherwise couldn't be open.
Yeah, I thought it was like a Jill lockpick thing.
Whatever. Okay. Anyways, that being said, in terms of major bosses like Margot or whatever, yeah, I think they go overboard on some of it. I like the demigod bosses because I get the feeling a lot of those were gimmicky. I like gimmick bosses. My favorite bosses in Souls games have been Demon Souls. Demon Souls has been my favorite roster of bosses, and that is because it is more based on problem solving and your knowledge of the game or your own wits about you versus mashing the dodge button when you've memorized the boss's animation.
Yeah, I can buy that. I think like my favorite boss in the game so far is probably Renala. And
Yeah.
that's a very easy boss. I beat it second attempt, but I like the spectacle of it. And
Yes.
the tone of it, and then contrast that with a boss like Radon, who maybe I
Yeah.
tackled when I was a bit too low level. But that's a very spectacle focused boss as well. The problem is it's so difficult that the 50th time the spectacle has worn off, and it just makes the boss like that much more, I don't know, drawn out.
No, I get it. I like Radon too. To be honest, Radon reminds me of a Dark Souls 2 boss, so I didn't mind.
Okay.
If it reminded me of Dark Souls 2, I didn't care about it. Or at least it made me aware that it was an intentional design decision and they were trying to explore a concept or polish it out. Same thing with those chariots in the mini dungeons. I never minded them
I
at
don't
all
mind the
because I had
chariots.
already played. What?
I don't mind the chariots.
Yeah, I think they're just part of the levels and stuff. And I think maybe they shouldn't be one hit kill upon touching. But that being said, their purpose is like very clear. You know.
Yeah, no, I don't mind that at all. Not one lick. Could I?
But Radon is like the overboard for you.
Yeah, mostly because I think it's mostly the run up to him is
Sure.
annoying.
Yeah.
I think if it was a shorter run up to him, or his arrows didn't have such great tracking, then it would be better for me.
Did you not use this stuff as cover?
I did use the stuff as cover, but even doing that, it still takes like, half a minute just to get up where he stops shooting arrows. And the entire time, if you like, mistime something once, there goes half your health bar. So that's one less flask you have for actually fighting him.
I think that's my one bit. My one actual problem, if I could tweak the bosses, is I think they do too much damage.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just a leveling thing because I was under leveled. But that being said, like I just straight up think they do too much.
They
damage.
really want you to level vitality in this. Like I'm at 35 vitality, level 104. I went back to a dungeon I had missed. I think where was that? Where in the lake Linuria or whatever it is.
Sure.
And the dungeon boss of that hit me once and took out a third of my health bar.
Yes, and it's so punishing, but it's like punishing in a way that's like, what are we doing here?
Yeah. No, I don't. This game will probably be patched to adjust a lot of these first impressions.
For something, at least, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hope so. But the one thing I was going to say regarding Radon, and I wanted to pivot to a more broad concept, was did you use torrent very much? I like torrent. I think one of the best things about this game is the mobility, the jump button, and the steed, the mount.
Yeah, I
think all of that's awesome.
I like torrent. Torrent's a good boy. I like. Yeah, no, actually, I didn't use torrent that much in the Radon run up because Torrent cannot strafe faster than his arrows track.
No, you need to be able to dodge the purple arrows. But that being said, once he does the shower, you can use Torrent for the shower. And more importantly, I use Torrent to whack Radon. I would
You did
the way
hit
I
and run?
fought Radon. Yeah, I would hit and run. That's how I did him.
I tried that, but it seems like I know this is the intent, but when you get knocked off Torrent, it's a lot of like mashing the dodge button, waiting for your guy to stop groaning and get up. Like, yeah, in a lot of FromSoft games and games in general, I'm not fond of enemies that have long grab attacks.
I think they're funny. I'm pro grab
They're
attack.
funny the first time.
Nah, they're funny every time, man.
Okay.
I love them.
Do you also put down finger butthole messages?
Yes, yes. Big chest ahead.
Yeah.
Yes.
Uh,
Look, I'm a simple man,
I
Murph.
put down a message that's been healing me through some tough times.
That's good. That keeps you going.
That keeps me
What?
going. I put down in the mimic tier boss, I put down could this be lover?
Yeah, yeah. What are you hoping for the DLC?
I don't know if this game needs DLC.
I think at the very least, according to Lance McDonald, apparently there's a PvP arena.
Okay, I could see that.
I think stuff like that would be good, or just general like content additions. I don't necessarily need another map. That's the
I
thing. Is like I
think
don't need like an Artorias of the Abyss up
you know
in
what they
this.
could do is they could do the Far Cry thing where they just reuse the map, but maybe they change like what time period it's set in. Doesn't Dark Souls 2 do something like that? Where you go
Um,
into the memories of a giant or something?
that's not DLC. That's just in the
That's just
product,
in the
dude.
game. I could see them
That's
doing
just in the
something
game.
like that.
But that being said, yeah. Well, you do go to other lands or whatever. Anyways, you made me lose it because you made me think about Dark Souls 2, my beloved.
I'm sorry.
My sweet darling. No, honestly, the best DLC for me in terms of FromSoft games is probably Bloodborne. The Bloodborne was the problem with these games a lot of times is content. Bloodborne's biggest problem is the base game vanilla Bloodborne kind of sucks in content.
I would agree with that. Without old hunters, I couldn't imagine the game. Yeah.
Yeah. And this game is like the only things that I would really want are what you just said, or the thing I remembered just now was world states. The one thing I talked to somebody about is interactivity with the world. And one of the reasons why I probably still like Breath of the Wild better, or if not in its own way, is because Breath of the Wild encourages you to engage with the mechanics of like the physics of the living breathing
Yeah.
world, aka the elements, and how the world changes and how you have to adapt to the changes. Like if it rains in Breath of the Wild, you can't climb a mountain.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like stuff like that is not in Elden Ring. And I'm not necessarily blaming them. I think they certainly worked for their game. But
Yeah.
that being said, is you feel it, and DLC could supplement that.
I don't know. So you want it to be more. You want the DLC to, like, I don't know, adjust the base game's mechanics, or do you want.
Yes,
Okay.
not necessarily like give them like climbing mechanics. Or
Yeah,
anything,
no, I'm
but
not
no,
saying.
but I mean,
Not
it's
like a
like change
Sims
in world
expansion.
states. Change in world states would be the biggest one, or something like that. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I could see that. I definitely don't need the game to be more because it's enough, or it might actually be too much. The comparison I'm going to make is I started watching The Sopranos for the first time recently, and I
Sure.
finished I finished season 1, and I was like, man, this is a real good show. How much is left? And I saw that there's like 6.5 more seasons, and I was like,
It's a heavy time investment, but then the other thing is like, how many RPGs do you play, Murph? In terms of JRPGs?
JRPGs, not really.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's the thing is like when you say 40 hours is a heavy time investment, it's like not for some people I know. Some people I know are very
Yeah.
comfortable devoting 200 hours to
I
something.
did put in 100 hours into Assassin's Creed Odyssey, but mostly that was I was bound by honor for that.
Do you think your 100 hours of Assassin's Creed Odyssey would be more fulfilling than 100 hours of Elden Ring?
I mean, yes, like uncritically, yes. Actually, can I speak to the gamers for a moment? Can I just I'm seeing a lot of people, sometimes rightfully dunking on Ubisoft. Especially in context of this game, I'm seeing a lot of like if Ubisoft made Elden Ring images where it's got like a big ass arrow pointing you where to go and a mini map and quest identifiers and god damn it, you idiots are making me defend the sex abuse company. I
No,
just
I think people are really toxic and entitled when it comes, and like if no one can criticize a FromSoft game. That
yeah.
was the one thing I was worried about. I part of me was like, I knew Elden Ring was going to be good, but then like the hero worship of
Mm-hmm.
FromSoft as a company and like their design principles is very scary, because then
Yeah.
it's like there's no conversation to be had.
Yeah, it's just the last three Assassin's Creed games, Valhalla, Odyssey, Origins, all featured very adjustable difficulty, not just for the combat, but for the UI and the quests themselves. Um, Odyssey flat out recommends you play in what they call immersive mode, where it means you don't have map markers, you don't have an arrow telling you where to go. Instead, you got to talk to NPCs and they give you directions. And then you got to look at your map and be like, they said it was south of here, so I'm going to place a pin down there and go in that direction and hope I see a landmark. You know, there's there like and Valhalla has real minimalist UI. All it has is that compass at the top, which, Elden Ring also has. It's just like,
Red Dead Redemption also like goes it's scary. I don't know if you played Red Dead Redemption 2. It's scary how like built in the game it wants, or it enables someone who doesn't want the map turned on.
yeah,
It like there's heavy location signifiers, and for 99% of people they will not pay attention to those location signifiers and they will go for the mini map. They will
yeah,
prefer the mini map. And Red Dead Redemption 2 has just as much, I would argue probably has just as much effort as Elden Ring when it comes to the detail put into the world
yeah,
and the environment. And the other thing I was going to say in terms of like UI and UX is like, it goes back to like, oh, they think FromSoft is an unwavering bastion.
yeah.
This is the first FromSoft game that actively has a real map. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean?
Yeah,
Like, imagine playing Elden Ring without a map, and that would have been so inexcusable.
that
That would have been
absolutely.
literally an impossible game to play. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
No, 100%. I just I think there is a thing of it's okay when FromSoft does it. And
Yeah.
sometimes it does come down to they do it good, but if I think the true innovation from FromSoft's like design that transfers to an open world game is your currency and your XP are the same resource.
Yeah.
If you could not sell like the weapons you don't want to use for XP, then there would be riots in the street. People would be saying that there's so many useless loot drops, like I see people talk about for other open world games. But
Yeah.
if I get a weapon I can't or don't want to use, I can sell that, and now I'm 10% closer to a level. And you know what? That
Yeah. Yeah.
makes
Yeah.
hunting dungeons real worthwhile.
I don't sell my stuff. I don't ever sell.
You don't?
I hoard like a monster.
I do that, and then I take a look and be like, you know what? I'm real close to a level, or I'm real close to that upgrade price from not Andre.
Yeah. From Stony Andre.
You know what? I
Yeah.
like that guy. I think he's my favorite Smith.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, we can talk more about not Bloodborne. We can talk more about Elden Ring in future iterations, because I'm sure I'll still be playing it come 2 weeks from now.
I kind of want to get it over with now and then like do New Game Plus or something as like a breather. I haven't played any other games other than Elden Ring and
Is that
World
right?
of Goo.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
nothing.
So you've beaten Elden Ring, right?
I have now beaten Elden
Oh,
Ring, and I got like when I started my new game, I got pretty far in terms of just like, the thing I like about Souls is like once you've done it once or twice and you get it, especially once you've grinded a boss and you figured out what a boss is, it just goes by so much faster. Like the
yeah.
game is just so much more breathable after. Like for me, there's a new life in these games after I've played them once. Like to me,
Mm-hmm.
when I hear someone go, "Oh, I played Bloodborne once like 5 years ago. I really liked it." To me, I'm like, "Oh, you haven't played the game yet. Like that's not
Yeah.
the experience I have."
Yeah, the first playthrough is a tutorial for the second playthrough. The issue with Elden Ring is that first playthrough can take up to 60 hours.
Probably more than that. Depends. I mean, depends on how comprehensive you are too. Like the game is, I think, no matter what, really, really big. I think playing it this time around, I sort of approached it a little bit more. I approached it differently to where I think I could probably replay this game and experience this game again in a similar context to something like into my other FromSoft games, but like there is still a part of it that's just so daunting, especially late game. I'm not sure if I will ever get over how difficult the late game bosses are.
They get pretty bullshit. Although Malekith I annihilated, like, strangely. Like, I just went up to him and did a bunch of jumping L2s, or no, L1s, and melted his health bar.
These bosses are secretly not good for jump attacks. Jump attacks are like amazing.
Yeah, yeah,
It,
definitely. And then you get to Millennia. Millennia?
who
I should know.
knows?
She says her name at me every time she kills me.
Whew, it's brutal. I mean, okay, this is I sound so mean when I say this. Malenia feels like a boss to punish people that aren't me. I think everybody deserves this boss in FromSoft except me. So when people say they should nerf her or something, I'm like, no, I just will never play this boss ever again.
Okay. It does have the vibe of a Kingdom Hearts secret boss. Uh,
It it reminds me of Frida and Maria. And I'm like,
mm,
oh, and like especially in terms of like what people want in a Dark Souls boss or like a FromSoft boss normally, it's mostly this stuff. It's just taken to an absurd point where the difficulty is uh unfair to even most people. I don't know a single person that's like, I love this boss.
yeah.
You know what I
It
mean?
does feel like the devs were like, all right, beat this fucker. And that's fine for like most other franchises that have like a super secret hard boss. Like I've never beaten Lingering Will in Kingdom Hearts 2. I've never beaten Sephiroth in Kingdom Hearts 1. I don't have any regrets about that. But with FromSoft games, with the community around them, there is this feeling of FOMO, you know? And it's like, does your feeling of FOMO beat your feeling of exhaustion?
I mean, I think that's what I mean by saying it's a karmic punishment. Like to me, when I hear people talk about how they appreciate these games and how like 90% of the time when I hear people talk about how much they enjoy a FromSoft game, it has to do with the bosses, has to do with how fast they are, you know, how difficult they are or how rewarding they are to fight. And Malenia is all of those things, but Malenia represents how I see most FromSoft bosses.
Hmm.
And it's just y'all deserve it. I think the community deserves this boss. And this sounds so mean to say, but yeah.
No, no, I get what you're saying. I pick up what you're putting down. Do you have any like observations on the actual like gameplay itself now that we've had 2 weeks difference from the last recording?
I mean, I think I said it before, whereas like this game is messier in terms of polish and all of that stuff compared to Sekiro and Bloodborne. So I think anyone who is slavishly devoted to FromSoft combat should probably look at Sekiro and Bloodborne as their crown jewels, and they probably do. I think we have now hit the point now where not everybody is saying this is the 10 out of 10 best
Yeah.
game ever.
I think
Like we have now hit that point
I think
already,
the honeymoon phase fell off for this game. I
real
I
fast.
I fully expect like minimum 3 years, maximum 5. We're going to be seeing like video essays titled Elden Ring isn't that good and here's why.
And they'd be wrong, but not for the reasons they're going to say. Or,
Yeah.
or not the reasons why people praise it. I mean, I think the thing I like about this game, and it's something like, okay, so it's time to open the Dark Souls 2 box again. Dark Souls 2 has bad combat. There's no way around it. It's not fun to play, but I to me all of the FromSoft games play like shit. Like all of these games are
Mhm.
not fun in combat. I think all of them are like eh. Whereas I think what's nice about Dark Souls 2 and Elden Ring is the sheer variety, especially with how Elden Ring has it just polished enough to where anybody can approach it. This is the most I've seen people dare to try new builds beyond their comfort zones. I often see so many people play in their comfort zones of how they always play the same game over and over again. And this is
Mhm.
the first time where I think it started to shake people a little bit. And I think that's great. And I think that's how the game should be.
Okay. Yeah. Uh, I'm still dual wielding colossal weapons, and I've really touched. I've figured out why I haven't been having fun, and it's just that there's no poise.
Did
Is
you power stance?
Yeah, I'm dual wielding
Rock and roll.
colossal swords, and then I switch to colossal axes.
Poise. All right,
There's no like.
we're gonna talk about stats real quick. Poise isn't dead. You just have to like spec for it just right. The real problem is it's not like Havel stuff in Dark Souls 1. Like you can't do the Havel bullshit anymore.
You
But like you could there's definitely poise builds still.
wait, which character?
When I in Dark Souls 1 there's something called the Havel. It's like when you wear the Havel set to where you're
Oh,
basically a fucking rock, to where you just tank all hits and your
I,
poise does not break. You could just fucking mash R2 and heal when you have to, and that is like the build, right?
okay. Yeah.
And that is not the case in this game. Poise doesn't work like that, but it's not like Dark Souls 3, where in Dark Souls 3 poise is pointless. Poise is fucking nothing in Dark Souls 3. So like this is sort of like a sort of rework, reapproach to that concept. And for the listeners who don't know, poise is basically a stat that ensures that your attack animations don't get interrupted. It's more complicated than that, but that's the basic for anybody who doesn't know what's going on.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. It just doesn't feel like there's any hyper armor. Like like dogs just knock me out of my attack animation constantly. Or a dude with a torch just holding out his torch. I can't. I'm just hit stunned until I can finally move out of it.
Well, a lot of that is number one, how aggressive the enemies are. The enemies are just too aggressive now. I don't mind it, but I think the secret is, and this is the one thing I learned and I sort of like came to terms with, is the game does not want you to do, and what's different about this compared to Bloodborne or Elden Ring, or not Elden Ring, compared to Dark Souls 3, is that it doesn't want you to just dodge and mash R1 or dodge and then do a charge attack. What it
Mm-hmm.
actually wants you to do is obviously dodge, hit the fucking dodge button whenever the animation's appropriate,
Yeah.
but it also wants you to utilize your weapon arts and your weapon skills, and specifically the unique things they give you. So like there are so many tools that they have given you at your disposal now. Basically the weapon arts have turned into something that you can customize on most normal weapons, or even the unique boss weapons have their own special abilities, and those are what really do damage, and those are the things that really stagger. Those are the things that really get you results.
Yeah, but using weapon arts is cheating.
Is it? Whatever it takes for the W, Murph. Whatever
No,
it takes.
no, I know. I use a mimic tier.
I gave up on the mimic. Like I'm not using a mimic. I will say, like, I'm not doing any of that this second playthrough, and I don't need it. You really don't need it for most of this stuff. I don't know. I'm not usually one for summoning. I'm not usually one for a companion. I think it was really helpful for people who are trying to approach it, because especially with the heavy amount of aggro. But like let's take Millennia. Millennia is actually not that hard, especially in first phase. In first phase, you can bully her. You
Yeah.
can really just be mean to her. And she also is very reactive. All of her moves are sort of a response to your positioning and your own actions. And with that, you can almost kind of control her, or at least bully her into doing the animations you want to do. Not largely speaking, but enough to matter.
Mm-hmm. No. So now that you've started a new character, how does this is what I'm curious about. How does Limgrave feel? Does it have that feeling of wonder and discovery that like
Uh,
first playthrough, or are you feeling you just seeing like the numbers in the Matrix?
Um, two things I'll say. Number one, I think in any of these games, or like any exploration game or whatever, the map feels smaller. Like the map now, like I've once you've properly contextualized it and your like expectations have now been hit, and I understand and I can map out
Uh huh.
the map in my head. I know where most things are at, or at least everything that I was at. That's the nice thing about exploring a world. So like the sense of wonder in terms of scale is gone. But
Yeah.
that being said, I don't approach exploration in terms of new discoveries. I'm not based on the singular aspect of like, oh, I see something new, there's a dopamine hit. For me, it's much more of a reflective experience. Like I like games with nothing in them, man. I like games with like huge wastelands of just walking around. Shadow of the Colossus is a game I've wasted hours literally just fucking walking, and there's
Yeah.
like nothing in the game. Like it's
Hmm.
just fucking space. So
Yeah.
like in terms of what's rewarding to me, it still feels very rewarding, especially since I mean, if we're talking in terms of content, I don't think any open world rivals Elden Ring. So I think people will still be satisfied on second playthroughs for that.
Okay. But it's more like you now understand like that little dungeon that you were stuck on early game, like the context of it in the scope of the game.
Yes,
So
yeah, yeah,
so
yeah.
maybe second
I
playthrough it doesn't seem that important to actually do.
Oh, yes. Oh, for sure. Like I've now hit the point now where I know what bosses to skip. I know what dungeons to not do. I know what places to not go. I am not a person that has to get every single item, fight every single boss. This game
Yeah.
has too much of that. It's literally got too much, and it goes into the if I play this game for the rest of my life, which I probably will, I'm not going to dedicate all my time to getting everything and doing everything.
Yeah.
I know what value I get out of the certain paths I take, and I think that's good enough.
Yeah. I'm I don't think I'm going to be coming back to this until there's any sort of like DLC announced.
We'll
Uh,
see.
but I think hopefully if I'm really at the end this time, I will be satisfied.
I will say, in terms of like, I will talk a little bit about the story. I like when I ended the game, I actually felt happy. I think this is probably like going into it. I like how fully realized the story is, and
Mhm.
I don't want to necessarily credit George R. R. Martin for all of this, but like I think sometimes FromSoft is a little too bare bones in things, and they leave ambiguity for. Okay, let's put it this way: in both Dark Souls 2, and this is the case for all of the Dark Souls games, there is a nation of giants to the north. And in Elden Ring, there is a nation of giants to the north. However, that nation of giants to the north has a fully realized culture and a fully realized, like, just existence in history.
Mhm.
And that sort of development, I don't personally think, and I'm saying this as a guy that knows how the stories of these games play, I don't think FromSoft ever paid attention to or cared about in that sort of detail that I think George R. R. Martin really brought to the table and helped for the world.
Yeah. No, I think this is the first FromSoft game to really make me feel for an NPC. When you get to your last interaction with Hugh,
Yeah,
and the
no, he is
juxtaposition,
officially the best blacksmith now.
yeah,
You
the
know.
juxtaposition of that with the time you spoke to him before that, it's oh my god, my heart was breaking.
Yeah, yeah,
I think that is what I mean when I say I need a world worth fighting for. I need some sort of emotional core. Even in like Bloodborne, I don't give a crap about the NPCs you can save in Bloodborne, but I have
yeah.
this idea that Yharnam is a city that
Sure.
is not always like this.
Yeah, I think in terms of NPCs, Elden Ring, number one, they fixed the complaints we had. For
They
at
did.
least they addressed one complaint, which was they listed NPCs on a map now, so
Mm-hmm.
I can locate characters,
Yeah.
which is the bare minimum, but I'll take it. Deal, you
Yeah.
know.
No, that's
But
good.
then the other thing is like I think because of how you stumble into them, I think it's much more satisfying and rewarding. Um, like let's I guess I'll talk about the hub, right? So the round table hold I think is probably one of the better hubs for these games. I think like the Chapel Ward in Bloodborne, it has personality to it, but like Bloodborne has a weird thing where like there's a hub for you to level up and talk to the doll and Gurman, and
Mm-hmm.
then there is a hub for NPC quest lines, and those two don't coexist, and it feels very weird to go to them. And the only real problem I have with the round table in Elden Ring is that you basically have to fast travel to it, and it feels so separated from the rest of the world. But otherwise, this is probably one of the better hubs.
Mm-hmm. I think, um, actually, I think my favorite hub is the one from 3. I like that little area.
Did you play Demons?
No.
Okay. All right. No, I agree. I mean, like Dark Souls One's hub. I'm gonna be mean to Dark Souls One real quick. Firelink Shrine is kind of pitiful. I
Yeah.
don't. I think most people who are fond of Firelink Shrine are probably too nostalgic for it. I don't think they're being honest with themselves. But like, Firelink Shrine in Dark Souls 3 is, I think, sort of where I'm going with in terms of like it being a nice home for NPCs. It feels like an area. I think my problem with Dark Souls 3 in as a whole, but applies to the hub, is its color palette is just not satisfying at all. In terms of art direction, I feel like it doesn't, like the round table hold feels warm. It feels like a nice refuge. It feels
Hmm.
like a nice place to relax
Yeah.
after you've explored and you've shit your pants to a really difficult boss. You go back, you level up, you talk to some people, you upgrade with Hugh, and it's relaxing.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that was most shocking to me actually when I got to Round Table Hold and I was like, "Oh, this is a location where like people exist."
Yeah.
And that was very surprising for me for a FromSoft game.
Hmm. Yeah, no, I mean, I'm gonna pay some lip service to Dark Souls 2 real quick. Dark Souls 2 has a hub, and it's actually a town. It's like Majula, and what will happen there is as you play through the game, NPCs will go in and settle there. So when you start, Majula is like a very like empty place, but as you play the game, it becomes full of people. The
Oh.
problem the problem with Dark Souls 2's hub, it's also warm and inviting. And I particularly like the music because it's warm and inviting, but there's a slight tone of, there's an ominous tone that plays with the theme. Anyone who's played the game will know what I'm talking about. But anyways, the problem with that versus the roundtable hold is a lot of the NPCs in Dark Souls 2, once they get to Majula, they stay in Majula. There is no real quest line for them. There's no resolution to their problems. It's sort
Hmm.
of like they are there now, and yeah, it helps that area breathe a little bit more. But those NPCs suffer for it, and they're a little bit flat. Whereas I think the NPCs, all the ones that exist in Elden Ring, are all realized characters.
Yeah. Everyone feels like they're doing their own story,
Yeah,
which is nice. I think yeah, I'm very curious to see how it all mets out. I don't actually even know what the final boss is.
I'm excited.
I
I'm
think
I'm
I've
excited.
I think I've gotten to all the areas and faced all the major bosses. I cleaned off the Lord of Blood last night. I know you were having some difficulty with that area, or at the
It's
very
not
least you told me.
difficulty. I just didn't like the area. I don't like
Yeah.
the Palace of Blood. I had an easy time with the boss because I had a charm that basically, I don't know if it nullifies, but it basically halted a lot of his like blood spells. But that
Okay.
being said, I found the area lacking in terms of like, because like once you hit the Blood Palace, you've already seen so much shit, and a lot of that shit was way more detailed or expansive or impressive. Once I hit the Palace of Blood, I was like, oh well, I've been through so much worse. Who gives a shit? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It feels weird that it's a late game area.
It is a little awkward, especially how you stumble upon it. How did you feel about Avagander?
Can you remind me?
Uh, I'm very sorry, Brogan, but Avagander at these nuts. Got him.
Oh my god! All right, we're done. The podcast is canceled. Viewer.